Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Lady returns 150 pieces of fried chicken. After that, entitled Karen pushes me out of my electric cart. And after that, entitled Dad threatens to call the cops over a lunchbox. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get any fried chicken. But I'm so hungry. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Lady returns 150 pieces of fried chicken. So, a few years back, I worked for a large retail/grocery company. And like most grocery stores, we have a deli section. I was working the returns desk, which I was still fairly new at, and a customer rolls up with a cart that had 2 cardboard boxes full of half-eaten fried chicken. I don't think I've ever seen that much fried chicken before. Me: hello, how can I help you? Customer: I would like to return this fried chicken. Me: what's wrong with it? Customer: I ordered this for a family reunion this past weekend. I took it home to my family, and when we got to eating it, it was all burnt and nasty. We weren't satisfied, and I'd like my money back. I'd like to note that she's still wearing her family reunion shirt. She's quoting our fresh food policy, which is 100% money back guarantee. So I decide to follow through with the return. Although in my head, I'm thinking why anyone would buy fried chicken from us, ever. Of course, it was going to be bad. Our deli food is known for being nasty. Anyway, she hands me her receipt and it says she bought 2 orders of 75 pieces of chicken, totaling out to about $100. I do the return, give her her money back, and I come around to grab the cart of chicken. It doesn't end there. Later, I'm taking returns/claims back to their respective sections. Bakery to bakery, frozen to frozen, etc. I roll the chicken cart over to the deli, and the 2 workers greet me, confused. I don't remember who said what, so I'll refer to them both as Deli. Deli: what's this? They ask. Me: claims. A lady came and returned these, said they were burnt and nasty. Deli: and you took it back? Me shrugs. Yeah, it's policy. 100% money back guarantee. At this point, they're now visibly angry. I have a mini freak out and start to doubt myself. Is that the policy? Did I do it wrong? I was still new at returns, so it's possible. Me: was I wrong? They tell me no and sigh. They ask what the customer looked like, and I described her to them. They get more angry. Deli: she came in last weekend to pick up that big order of hers. Took us all day to make it. She comes in and doesn't have enough money. Told us she didn't know it would be that much. She told us about her family reunion and how much it meant to her. She started crying. She only had about $80 on her, so we, the deli and bakery workers, decided to chip in and help her pay for the rest. All 3 of us looked down at the cart and cardboard boxes filled with half-eaten nasty chicken. This is why I have trust issues. Speaking of fried chicken, what's your favorite place to get fried chicken of all time? Please let us know. KFC. Don't at me. Entitled Karen pushes me out of my electric cart. So this just happened at my local grocery store, and I'm still fuming over it. For reference, I have a hereditary connective tissue disorder, HEDS, that makes my tendons, ligaments, skin, some veins, and other connective tissue very loose and stretchy. This causes chronic pain, frequent dislocations, hyperextensions, and generally loose joints. I also have a degenerative disc disease that makes my heart race every time I'm standing and can eventually cause me to pass out if I'm standing for too long. I can walk, but I have to use a cane when I do because I can't walk very well for very long. My knees don't like to support my body weight, and I can very easily dislocate a knee or a hip if I step ever so slightly wrong or happen to trip over anything. Because of this, I tend to use my wheelchair for longer outings. Thankfully, my local grocery store has those electric carts that customers can ride around in the store, so I don't have to go to the trouble of hauling my wheelchair out of the car and can just use one of those. So I'm in the store, doing some grocery shopping, minding my own business. I wasn't even really paying attention to the people around me because I just wanted to get what I needed and get out. One of these items I needed happened to be on the top shelf, so I got up out of my electric cart to get it off the shelf. The next thing I know, this Karen loses it because those cards are for people who need them, not kids who just want to take them for a joyride. I should add here that if you didn't know me or you've never seen me attempt to walk, there doesn't appear to be anything wrong with me. Other than the way I walk, I look perfectly healthy to the casual observer. Now, I get this kind of thing all the time when I'm using one of the store's electric carts, so I just rolled my eyes and told her that I do need it and started to move along to get the rest of my shopping done. Surprise, surprise, that wasn't the end of it. The next thing I know, this lady's hands are on my shoulders and she gives me a hefty shove and pushed me so hard I fell out of my cart. Now I'm just sitting there on the floor, stunned, while this lady yells at me in between generally incoherent ramblings about stupid college kids. Thankfully, at this point, my boyfriend came back from grabbing milk. He rounded the corner into the aisle and saw what was going on, and from the look on his face, I'm surprised he didn't deck her. The subsequent argument went something like this. Boyfriend: "Excuse me, what the heck do you think you're doing?" Karen: "This little brat thinks it's okay to steal carts from disabled folks." Boyfriend: "He is disabled, you idiot." Karen: "I saw him get up to reach for something. He's obviously faking it." Boyfriend: "You thick jerk. You think just because he can stand means he doesn't need a cart? And you think that gives you the right to assault him? What the heck is wrong with you?" Boyfriend then proceeds to ask me if I want to call the cops. Lady starts freaking out over the possibility of actual charges, and I guess the commotion was enough that at this point, one of the store's managers decided to get involved. He sees me still on the floor, asks what's going on, and when my boyfriend explained what had happened, also asked me if I wanted to call the authorities. At this point, I had had enough, was pretty shaken up and on the verge of crying, which I don't like to do in public, and just wanted to go home. At the end of all this, the store manager comped my groceries, banned Karen from the store, and told me he would make sure that all the other stores from the chain that were in the area did too. I've had people give me the side eye or go so far as to chide me for using the store's electric carts before, but I have never had anyone put their hands on me until now. It makes me so mad because this lady literally just saw me stand up to reach something, and apparently that was reason enough for her to feel the need to physically remove me from the mobility aid I was using. Now, like I said, to the casual observer, I don't look disabled. Unless you saw me walking or saw me dislocate something, you probably wouldn't know there was anything wrong with me. It just makes me so angry because people ought to know that invisible illnesses exist and not all disabilities can be outwardly seen. Also, just because someone can stand up doesn't mean they don't need a wheelchair. It's not like only people who are paralyzed have the right to use one. And even if I was just a stupid college kid taking an electric cart for a spin, that still doesn't give someone the right to push me out of it. If you think I shouldn't be using it, go get a manager or something. Or better yet, mind your own business and finish your own shopping. I shouldn't have to explain my disability to everyone who sees me using a mobility aid. That happens a lot, even when I'm just using my cane. Random strangers will ask me what happened or how I got hurt. My go-to answer / shutdown for that is now, I was born, and I especially shouldn't have to fear for my physical safety every time I need to go grocery shopping. Anyway, sorry if this was long-winded or ranty. It was infuriating. Entitled Dad threatens to call cops over a lunchbox. This is my first post on Reddit, and I created my account specifically to post this story here because it's crazy. It takes place at my summer job at a day camp. I was and am a high school student at the time of writing this. I still work there, so I have to be very careful about giving away too much and identifying the business. It was over a year ago too, so some of the finer details might be misremembered. The interaction is mainly between my boss, the head counselor, and the dad. The cast. We've got Entitled Dad. We've got Mike, my boss, the head counselor. We've got Sam, Entitled Dad's kid. I don't want to call him Entitled Kid, as I really blame the parenting here, and he wasn't bad at all in this story. And we've got the other counselors and I. As I mentioned, I'm mostly an observer here. So it's the end of the day on Friday. Camp normally ends at 3. The counselors leave at 3:15, and Mike will stay with the kids in aftercare until the last kid gets picked up by 6. However, on Fridays, the counselors all stay late to clean up, usually until around 5 or 6. The kids in aftercare just play by themselves, or we put on some cartoons. Mike usually plays with them, but as mentioned, Friday is cleanup day. We're all cleaning up, and slowly the parents of kids in aftercare are trickling in to pick their kids up. Sam is just hanging out. Now, we had another kid in the camp, Isaac. His parents had already picked him up. He and Sam had the same model lunchbox. We didn't have a problem with this until today. Entitled Dad comes to pick up Sam, and goes to get his lunchbox from the table. He picks it up, marches to Mike, and says, This is not my kid's lunchbox. Mike sighs and says calmly, I'm sorry, we had another kid this week, Isaac, who had the same lunchbox. I guess that's Isaac's lunchbox you're holding. Entitled Dad scoffs and says, obviously. Now get my kid's lunchbox back, and starts to walk out with Isaac's lunchbox. Mike rushes forward saying, I can call Isaac's parents, but I'm going to need you to leave his lunchbox here. Entitled Dad, no. They have my kid's lunchbox. I have theirs. This is my insurance. I get my kid's lunchbox back. I will give it back when they give me my kids. I'll wait for them to come here. Mike is flabbergasted. All the counselors are listening, but pretending not to so we don't get involved. Mike, well, it might be a while to get a hold of Isaac's parents. They only left 5 minutes ago, so they could still be driving and not pick up the phone. Entitled Dad, well then, I'm not waiting. I'm leaving. You have my address. I give you my permission to give them my address, and then they can come to my house and make the exchange. Mike, I cannot let you leave premises with another kid's property. Why not? You let that family leave with my kid's property. I don't think I've ever seen Mike more confused. Mike, that was an accident. I can't knowingly let you leave with that lunchbox. Entitled Dad, you guys are lucky I'm not calling the cops. Mike, I'm sorry? Your negligence let another family steal my kid's lunchbox. Mike, starting to get a little upset. Sir, mistakes happen. Again, I apologize for this inconvenience, but there was no crime committed here. This goes on for a few minutes. Eventually, Mike pulls a 1000 IQ move. He was studying to get his master's in elementary education. He knows how to handle temper tantrums. All right, sir, I'll see what I can do. In the meantime, would you mind signing Sam out? He hands Entitled Dad a pen and a clipboard with a sign-out sheet. To sign it, Entitled Dad has to set the lunchbox down on the table. Entitled Dad, of course, doesn't notice and falls for it. While he's signing Sam out, Mike quietly takes Isaac's lunchbox and sets it safely behind him. Entitled Dad never notices. Then, Mike checks the contact list and calls Isaac's parents. His end of the conversation goes something like this. Hi, Isaac's mom. This is Mike from the camp. I believe I have Isaac's lunchbox here. Yeah, he and another kid had the same lunchbox, so you probably have his. No worries. When do you think you'll be able to drop it off? Oh, really? Uh-huh. No worries. See you shortly. Bye. He turns and looks at Entitled Dad. In an impressively calm voice, he states, they will be back shortly to pick up Isaac's lunchbox, but they do not have Sam's. Isaac just forgot to grab his. It was so silent, you could hear a pin drop. The other counselors and I froze for a second, but managed to keep the facade of, we're just working here, don't mind us. Entitled Dad freezes for a moment, unsure of what to do. I can see the little gears turning in his head. He comes to his epic conclusion. Well then, it must be here. Genius. He starts tearing around the room, looking everywhere from the lunchbox table to the play area to the game shelves to the office where the kids aren't even allowed in. Everywhere. Mind you, we had been cleaning up, and so everything was very neat and tidy. While this is going on, Mike decides a different strategy. While Entitled Dad is dismantling the last hour of cleaning and tidying, Mike crouches down next to Sam. During all this, Sam had been just quietly playing with some toys. He was around 6. Mike, hey buddy, do you remember where you put your lunchbox? Sam nods. Mike, where is it? Sam, on the kitchen table? Everything stopped. The other counselors and I couldn't maintain our indifferent facade any longer. We just froze. Half of us staring at Sam, the other half glared at Entitled Dad. You don't talk to Mike or anyone at this camp like that and get away with it. Now, I briefly want to talk about Mike. He's probably one of the most chill, funniest, silliest teachers/counselors you could find. Absolutely perfect for a job like this. He could entertain the kids for hours, break up arguments, anything. He would put on these funny personas and act out scenes with them. He was also my first career mentor figure that I had and gave me some great advice. If I was older, I'd say he's the type I could grab a beer with. Just so relaxed and a great guy. He deserves all the praise in the world. I wish I could name him, but that would reveal too much. However, when he stood there, there was a look on his face I had never seen before. Gone was the silliness. Gone was the fun. Also gone was the tolerance for this Entitled Dad. In the most deadly calm voice that practically shouted anything but calm, he said, Sam says his lunchbox is on the kitchen table in your house. The lunchbox isn't here. Entitled Dad once again freezes. His face goes white. then red, then blue. Guess he was still feeling some of that 4th of July spirit. He stutters for a bit before turning to Sam. He said, "Now look at this. You've made me look stupid." It was at that moment I lost all little remaining respect for this guy. It was also the moment I felt bad for Sam. Throughout the week, Sam had been a less than stellar camper. He threw tantrums, was entitled, didn't follow the rules very well, etc. All frustration I had for him was replaced by pity. He had been raised in a house where his father's mistakes and actions led to him being blamed. He had been raised by a man so entitled he would throw tantrums over a kid's lunchbox. That's why I'm not calling him entitled kid in this story. He deserves much better. Anyways, Mike manages to put a stop to that quickly by just stepping behind them and non-physically urging them towards the door. Entitled Dad doesn't get the memo and turns to Mike. I still had some hope Entitled Dad would apologize. Nope. Entitled Dad decided it was time for small talk. Entitled Dad: "So, Mike, you in college?" A stunned Mike: "Yes." Entitled Dad: "What are you studying?" Mike: "I'm getting my master's in elementary education." "Oh, cool. What's that like?" Mike: "Great. We learn how to deal with childhood behavior all the time, such as exploration of the world, strengthening communication skills, tantrums." He put emphasis on the last part. Entitled Dad finally got the hint and walked out. We all looked at each other like, what the heck just happened? Mike just shook his head, called his boss, the CEO, to tell her what had happened just in case, and then we went back to normal. I later asked him about Entitled Dad, and he said that apparently the family is really wealthy and buys a spot for their kids for every week in the summer. Then they decide whether or not they want to show up that week, not bothering to ask for a refund. Some families. Speaking of camp, have you ever been to a camp? And if so, did you like it? Please let us know. Karen's retreat coming soon. Book your spots now. My grandma tried to ruin my brother's wedding. My brother's wedding was 2 years ago, but this still upsets me every time it comes to my mind. My grandmother is rather histrionic. If she isn't the center of attention, she will make herself the center of attention. So it was my brother's wedding and I was his best man. I have a tiny car and needed to be at the wedding venue early, and my grandma was going to be picked up by my parents later. She wasn't anywhere near ready and I needed to leave, so I assumed all was well at this point. We set everything up at the venue and took photos and got ready for the ceremony. And finally, my parents arrived with my grandma in tow. She was already upset and causing a scene because I had abandoned her when I left for the venue. We managed to calm her down, but I could see my brother was already getting disappointed with the situation. He just wanted everything to go right, and he's too nice to say anything to our grandma. Things went okay for a while, until we were seating her in the chapel, and she wasn't getting to sit with my mom and dad at the very front where the parents of the bride and groom had the place of honor. Once more, she made a big scene until she was moved to the front next to my parents. My brother was red with embarrassment, as everyone from both families had pretty much filled into the chapel. Things calmed back down once she had her way. The last straw was at the reception. Everyone was eating and having a good time. I was going around checking on the tables to make sure everything was going well and people were being taken care of. And then I get to my grandma's table. I don't remember exactly what she said, as I kind of lost it at that point, and this was like 2 years ago. But it was something like, "Why is this taking so long? If they aren't going to get the reception moving along, I need you to take me home." I replied with something like, "I still have to give the best man speech in a while, and you aren't going to be asking mom and dad to take you back." Then she said the words. She said this to me growing up anytime I said something about school or something I had learned or disagreed about, and it basically instantly triggers me. "Don't you get smart with me, you little jerk." I saw red, and I said something to get her to come outside the venue. Then I got vicious. I didn't yell because I didn't want to draw attention to the situation, but anyone within line of sight would easily know I was mad. I told her something along the lines of, "You need to sit down and shut up. This is my brother's wedding. He still believes you are this amazing person that he wants in his life. But I've seen through to the vile jerk you are for years now. You mistreat my mom, and you're trying to do the same to my brother now. Your BS will never fly with me. I know what you are, and if you don't get back in there and pretend that you're having a great time, you will have nothing to do with my life." She got all mad and said, "How dare you talk to your elders like that?" I handed her the keys to my car and told her she could leave if she absolutely couldn't stand the reception. But if she did, she would never be invited to be a part of anything in my life. Not my wedding, not my graduation, not even to see any grandchildren I might have in the future. and you will be lucky if you see me again before you die. Apparently, she either didn't care or thought I was bluffing because she left. I haven't seen her since. My choice. She complains to my mom that I don't talk to her. I specifically sent her what looked like an invitation that told her that she wasn't invited to my wedding. Then she wasn't invited to my graduation. And after learning about the comments she made about me, who's Caucasian, and my Asian wife, and how it's good we haven't had any kids yet because the world doesn't need any more babies like that, I hate her guts. I'd like to say some part of me still loves her, but after everything, I can't even stand the thought of her. If there was any chance I could forgive her for how she tried to ruin my brother's wedding, what she said about me and my wife pretty much solidified my determination that she would never meet her grandkids, and that I'm not even sure I would be willing to visit her on her deathbed. I don't know if I overreacted or if I'm a bad person for responding like this, but I watched for 18 years as she mistreated my mom over and over again, and my dad by proxy. She had always doted on me and my brother, but when she acted like that at my brother's wedding, all of that came boiling to the surface and I tore into her. You won't stop calling me unless I agree to set up a meeting with one of your reps? Okay then. In the mid-2000s, I worked for a small printing company. Our commercial work was on large lithographic machines, but we still had office printers and a number of staff who knew a lot about them. I don't think a single one of our office printers had been purchased new or even working. The owner just bought lots of broken office printers for not a lot of money and then Frankensteined them into working ones. We didn't often buy printer paper because we had just cut leftovers from the factory to suitable sizes for our office. Overall, our office printing costs were extremely low despite the fact that we printed tens of thousands of pages a year. I was a general office dog's body. Among my duties was fielding calls for the director. He would never take calls from cold callers, and I was allowed to describe myself as whatever job title they wanted to hear to deal with them. An office printing management service had got our number. They were offering a completely managed service where they loaned the machines, supplied the consumables, took care of everything, and you just paid per print. Great for some companies, expensive and unnecessary for us. When they first started ringing, I kept telling them, "Sorry, we aren't interested. Please remove us from your list." Or, "We're a printing company. We don't need managed printing services. Please take us off your list." This must have gone on for months, and I was getting annoyed that they wouldn't take us off the call list, and started spending more time trying to explain to them why it was pointless and a waste of both our time to keep ringing. I explained the information above, but the caller was convinced he could save us money regardless of all that. I guaranteed him he couldn't, as I doubted we paid more than a penny a page. Naturally, he didn't believe me. As far as he was concerned, if I was answering the phone, I was the office junior. No one important answers the phone, who had no idea how much printing actually cost, and just too stubborn and/or stupid to put him through to someone that mattered. And if he persisted, eventually he'd get through to the right person who would reward him with a juicy contract. This same conversation was had at least once a week for the next month or so. He's desperate to let me set up a meeting. Besides, he says he can take us off the list once he's set up a meeting with a decision maker. Right, fine, sure, you can book a meeting for your reps, but I guarantee it will be a complete waste of their time. I scheduled them a meeting with the office manager, me, on a Friday afternoon when I'm the only one in the office, so I won't be too busy and it'll be a diversion. The reps arrive. I show them into the office. They're clearly thinking we spend a lot on printing because we have so many printers, and I gave a rough idea of how much we get through in the office. They give me their enthusiastic spiel about all the advantages, focusing on the costs. They want to sit down with the figures and see what they can save us. Do I know what we spend at the moment? Paraphrased conversation. Me. Not completely sure. Think it's around 100 to 200 pounds a year. Rep. Nah, it'll be a lot more than that with the amount of printing you do. Is that just the paper? Me. No, that's just ink and toner. Rep. Looks skeptical. Well, there's the paper too. Me. To be honest, we mostly cut down leftover paper from the factory, or sometimes suppliers give us a few cases for free. Rep. Okay, right. So what about the initial costs of the machines? If you average it out over the lifetime of printers rather than considering it just a capital expenditure, it can take up a significant portion of your printing costs. This photocopier, for example, it's a few years old now, and you're looking at about 12,000 pounds to replace it with a similar spec machine. So with our service, you can avoid that capital expense. Me. The owner buys them broken and repairs them. Most of the printers only cost a few quid, except the photocopier, which I think cost us 700 pounds. As even broken, they're expensive, and it took 3 broken ones to make that one working again. Rep. Right. So when you need to replace it, me. I hazard to guess he'll do exactly the same again. Rep. And the ongoing maintenance costs? Then there's the costs and lost productivity of downtime to consider. He's trailing off at this point. It's clearly part of his rehearsed spiel, but he can also see downtime isn't an issue when we bizarrely have more printers than computers. Rep. There's absolutely no point of us being here, is there? Me. No, I'm afraid not. That was repeatedly explained to the guy who set up the meeting, but he said your company won't stop cold calling until we agree to a meeting. So here you are. The reps agree it is a complete waste of time, have a bit of a frustrated laugh about the call center, and says it's not the first time they've been sent to completely pointless meetings because the call center folks get their commission based on the quantity, not quality of the meetings they set up. They don't bother giving me their quote. I never heard from that company again. Am I the jerk for possibly costing my son his best friend? My son, who's 10, has been playing Fortnite with his best friend for a couple of years. For about a year and a half of that time, it was just the two of them playing, and in the last 6 months, more and more of their classmates have started to join in. My kids are with me every other week, and on the weeks they are here, I spend a good amount of time with them, chilling, doing homework, movies, etc. I live with my girlfriend and her 3 kids, so we spend a lot of time in the boys' very large room. About 3 months ago, I started noticing my son being upset and found out that he was being kicked from the groups, and at first I was concerned, maybe he was being a little jerk or whatever. About 2 months back, I was in their room and my son was playing with his friends and I heard him kind of begging and saying, "Don't kick me." And then he said, "I don't have V-Bucks to get you that skin." And then he got kicked. I asked him what was going on and he downplayed it and I let it go. Since that point, I've seen the same thing happen a few more times and I finally got him to open up to me. And it turns out he has been being bullied by his friend for a long time into giving/gifting skins, emotes, and other items. I explained to him that I got the V-Bucks for him to get stuff for himself and that I can't afford to be getting his friend stuff. He said he understood and said he would stop. It turns out that his friend has been doing this to all of his friends, and he opened up to me that he had given this kid 20 plus items ranging from 1,200 to 2,000 V-Bucks, $12 to $20 each. So I've spent anywhere from $250 to $400 on this kid that I know of. I had written out a long text to the kid's mom a couple of weeks back, and for some reason I decided not to send it. Well, Tuesday, yep, you guessed it. I was in the kid's room and I heard, "No, Billy, I don't have enough V-Bucks to get you that skin." But then I heard, "You know what, Billy? I've given you more than 20 things, and you've given me one." He was of course kicked from the group. That was the last straw for me, and I guess for my son. It turns out that the other kids were giving this kid whatever he wanted, and that was why my son often was the one who would get kicked. I told him I was going to be sending his friend's mom a text explaining everything, and I also had some text messages with Billy saying, "If you buy this skin, I will refriend you." He begged me not to send it, but I obviously thought it was important enough that the mom needed to know what her kid was doing. She replied back in a very understanding way, apologizing to my son and to me, and said she would be talking to her son yesterday after school. So my son didn't want to go to school today because he's worried about how things will go. So am I the jerk, or did I do the right thing? Hard to ruin a 5-year best friend relationship, and yes, I see that this kid wasn't really being a best friend. Oddly, I blame what's going on for bringing this on. For 6 months, the only place they saw each other was online. And yes, the mother has offered to reimburse us for the V-Bucks. Update. So I went to pick him up from school and he was doing great. He said yes, his friend is mad at him, but that he was still talking to him. Billy has lost his gaming, phone, and internet privileges for 30 days and was made to apologize to my son. I was trying to keep my posting somewhat short, so I didn't explain how much we talked about all of this. We go on nightly walks. I took the time to explain that real friends don't do this type of stuff, and my son totally understands that. I haven't heard back yet from the mom, but have no reason to think she won't follow through and pay us back. Thank you to all of you that commented, and wow, I've never received awards like this before. Thank you to you all. And to people posting that "why did I do this?" or saying I made a bad choice, I will just say that I've had many parents and people reply they have gone through similar stuff and that this post hit home with them. So that's reason enough for me. Thank you again, everyone. Am I the jerk for demanding my girlfriend return the $1,200 sofa she bought using my operation money? So this happened yesterday, and my girlfriend is calling me a jerk for wanting her to return the sofa that she said she bought to make my apartment look nice. I'll start by saying that my 25 male girlfriend, 22 female, moved in with me 2 months ago into my apartment. I've been saving for a rotator cuff surgery in my left shoulder, I've been experiencing tense pain in my entire shoulder joint, difficulty with movement, and inability to perform tasks at work. Because my arm would feel numb and I can't pick and lift things with it, the total cost is $7,000, and I'm planning on having the operation before the end of this year for a number of reasons. My girlfriend doesn't have a job. She says she's relieved that I own an apartment and that we don't have to pay for rent. And lately, she's been talking about my old furniture and wanting it to be replaced, especially the sofa that she calls ugly, even refuses to sit on it, saying it's old and disgusting. Last week, she's been looking at different types of sofas that she said she wanted to buy. She tried to show some pictures and convince me of how nice it would look in our living room. I refused to buy it because it's expensive and I don't have money to buy it. She said that I have $3,500 in my savings and that I could afford the sofa and then continue saving for my operation. She also said that I won't have to pay a lot of money. I get upset when she mentions this, and I told her to drop it completely. Yesterday, I got home at 8 p.m. First thing I noticed was my old sofa outside. I walked in to see what was going on, and I saw the round-armed sofa she showed me last week. I asked her about it, and she said she used $1,200 from my savings to buy it, and went on about how the sofa made a huge difference in the interior decor and looked nice. I got angry with her. I told her to return it immediately and get my money back, but she yelled at me that she bought the sofa for me, not her, and that she felt embarrassed by that disgusting sofa that I keep holding on to, probably because of memories I had with my ex. I told her she needed to return it, and yesterday she started crying and called me a jerk because she thought she was doing something nice for my apartment and then left. I called her, and she's refusing to come back to have a civil talk with me and said that I wasn't civil when I yelled at her. Edit. The money was at my apartment. I've been keeping the money to pay for my operation at my place because that was easier than having to go to the bank every day. I save whatever I can get, and I also have to pay for other things as well. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you keep the sofa or have her return it? Please let us know. She sounds like a lovely young lady. Reminds me of myself. And please come watch this video next. You will love it. Join as a channel member today and we'll give you a special shout out on our next video. And to have us make any kind of video you'd like us to, just come visit us on Fiverr. Link pinned in the comments below.